Good afternoon, and thank you so much for attending today's Tutor Assessor Connections event. My name is Jamie, and you'll all know who I am, the Young STEM Leader Project Officer, who you'll be sick of hearing from, I'm sure. Thanks for coming along today. I'm really excited to see so many of you here from so many different centres across the country. So we've got some kind of housekeeping stuff to go through first before we get started, and then I'll introduce you to some of our panellists who I'm really delighted to be joined by today. So first of all, if I could just make sure that everyone's muted their own mic, that'll just stop any interference or any nastiness coming through, and say hi in the chat, what's your name, your centre, and what levels you're delivering before we get started. Before the session, many of you have contributed to it already. I've sent across an idea boards for you to add questions to. It's difficult to find a kind of platform or software that everyone can access in their centre, but hopefully you'll be able to access this. I've just popped the link in the chat just now, and you can ask any questions there that I'll give to some of our panellists later on. And hopefully you can all hear me now, and if you can't, just pop in the chat and Graeme might be able to help you out with that. So this is the first ever Tutor Assessor Connections event, and the idea of Tutor Assessor Connections was to bring a group of tutor assessors together to share best practice, come up with some ideas about how to deliver the award, and maybe generate some questions and thinking for the next sessions. We've now got between 1,500 and 2,000 young STEM leaders at our best guess across the country, and almost 600 tutor assessors in every local authority of Scotland. So we're still at the early days of Young STEM Leader, but we're really glad to see the uptake in so many different centres across the country. We will be recording this event, and it will be made available after the session on the Tutor Assessor Basecamp, so just be aware of that if you unmute your mic to answer any questions. So I'm glad to be joined today by, we've got three panellists with us today, and I've also got one kind of video message from a panellist who couldn't make it because they had to attend another event. So we have, first you're going to hear from Graeme Ruff, who is the Young STEM Leader Project Manager. Then you'll hear from Amy Burgoyne. Amy is a tutor assessor at Ardrossan Academy in North Ayrshire. Then you hear from Paul Malcom, who is tutor assessor at Kilcreggan Primary School. And lastly, you'll hear a video message from Darren, who's our digital skills manager at SSERC. But before we do all that, I have a little poll that I'd like to share with you to find out a bit more about you. So you should see a poll on your screen just now. I've just got 3 wee questions that I'd like you to answer before we get started. Just waiting on a couple more people to answer. Great. So I'm just going to end that there and share the results. So we've got a good mix of people with us today, delivering all different levels, and about 50-50 mix of people who are already delivering the programme or preparing to start the programme, which is really great. So, as I said, we're going to hear from our 4 speakers, Graeme, Amy, Paul, and Darren, and then there'll be time for questions for the panellists. So if you have any questions for the panellists, feel free to pop them on the idea boards or put them in the Zoom chat box during the session, and then I will kind of facilitate a wee Q&A session afterwards. In the second half of the session, after 4:30, we're going to do a short breakout task with you to kind of think about some more ways of running Young STEM Leader and really kind of capture your thoughts, and all of that will be shared at the end of the session. But I've got a few quick updates from us just before we get started. So first of all, we've got an announcement about about an opportunity within the Young STEM Leader team. We are recruiting 16 RTAVs, which is Associate Regional Trainer and Verifiers, and this post is open to any of you, any tutor assessors across the country. So it's a 12 days equivalent post that we're advertising for now, and it closes in early November, and it's a chance to kind of broaden your involvement with Young STEM Leader, to get involved with assisting training and kind of promoting the programme in your area, as well as completing some external verification activity as we move towards the end of the academic year. So Graeme's just posted that job advert in the chat just now, and I'm sure there's many RTAVs or future RTAVs in the room with us today, so please check that out and have a look at it after the session. And another announcement that you probably have heard of already is that we're coming up to Young STEM Leader Week. That's happening at the end of the month, and there's loads of opportunities to get involved, whether that's for planning an event in your centre for that week, or doing some social media bits, or getting involved in some of the daily hashtag challenges that we've got on, or applying to take part in a Twitter takeover, which we're also running as well. I'll ask Graeme to pop the link for the Young STEM Leader Week in the chat just now, or I'll do it if you don't quite have time to do that. But please do get involved. There's loads of opportunities to do that, and that may be a really nice opportunity for you to work towards with your young STEM leaders at the end of the month. Yeah, Graeme, I'm aware I've just asked you to do something, and now you're about to start speaking. So please just, I'll send a link, and it's now time for you to do your wee bit. So I'm glad to introduce Graeme, who's going to give you some more hints and tips about delivering young STEM leader. So Graeme, it's over to you.
Thanks very much, Jamie, and it's great to see everyone along here today to our inaugural Tutor Assessor Connections, such a huge group of people, so this is fantastic. I am going to go very, very quickly. I'm just going to do 3 or 4 minutes. I'm probably going to tell you a lot of what you already know as well, and probably go back over what Jamie said, hence the reason I'm going to go really fast. And then I'm really excited for you guys to hear from Paul and Amy. So I'm Graeme, Young STEM Leader Project Manager. I just want to remind you about the resources that are available to you and give you some reminders about things that are out there. And there's some interesting opportunities for you at the end as well. Please remember that there's a wide suite of activities, packs and resource packs available to you. So from left to right there on the top row, that's your non-formal documents. So every level has got the programme support notes. There's of course the log that the young STEM leaders use, and then there's the activity pack. And similarly for the non-formal as well, you've got these activities. Please use these. You don't need to use them like a mandatory list of activities, but please dip in and out of them. And although each level has its own activity pack, those activities actually go beyond that level, and Jamie and I have worked hard to link activities to the other levels in the programme as well. And as I always say during training, the activities are just too good to give to one level, so please dip in and out of those. Remember as well, when you log into your dashboard, there's the resources section there as well. So you've got all of the stuff I just spoke about there, the logs, the support notes, etc. There's also your certificates. There's artwork in there. You can use the Young STEM Leader iconography, etc. to make up your own documents. And also there's the kind of boring stuff like the certification policies as well. It's all there in your resources for you. On top of that, we also have Basecamp, and I know that Basecamp sometimes drives you mad, so switch off the notifications, but don't forget about it. Go into Basecamp and have a look at what's being said. There was a brilliant question in there yesterday about UCAS that I've answered now, and you know, we've got almost 600 trained tutor assessors in Scotland, all in there with their accounts, talking to each other and sharing ideas and resources, so please dip in and out of that. Jamie's already mentioned the RTAVs. We're really excited about that because there's going to be 16 trained tutor assessors from out there in Scotland, from that 600 group, coming to work with us in this kind of remote, flexible role, and we're really looking forward to that. So please, if you're interested in that, please go, and good luck to those who apply. Also, there's a YouTube channel as well, which is kind of new, and on there, there's training videos to use the website. There's introductory videos about the programme. It's maybe the kind of thing you would show a colleague who's interested in the programme, because you guys know a lot about it now. So, YouTube channel with tons of information there. On the top, of course, Tutor Assessor Connections. Well, we're in the first ever one just now, but this we hope will be a monthly offering. So next month's already planned during Young STEM Leader Week, where we'll be talking about how STEM ambassadors can support Young STEM Leader programme. But also, if you and your Young STEM leaders actually want to present a Tutor Assessor Connections, and that would of course count towards their activities, events or interactions, the sky's the limit here. So please talk to us, opportunities to actually present and show what you guys have been up to in your sector. centres. The Young STEM Leader Week is growing arms and legs, and we're hugely excited. We've got STEM VIP interviews, Twitter takeovers. Amazon have donated very kind vouchers as well, so your Young STEM leaders could be winning Amazon vouchers as well. So please engage with Young STEM Leader Week. There's also another opportunity to work with our evaluators. So the University of Stirling were appointed evaluators for the programme. And actually they've made an offer. Any young STEM leaders who are interested in that type of work, whether it's research and evaluation and measuring the impact. So if young STEM leaders in your centre are still scratching their head thinking about what they're going to do, well, they can work with the evaluation team, who are a lovely group of people, and actually carry out some of the evaluation work in their centre on behalf of the university. So that's a really cool, unique opportunity. And finally, for the young STEM leaders, don't forget, Young Scot are one of our partners, and they have massively, very generously incentivised young STEM leader as well. And there's a points allocation there on your screen, and that's what the young STEM leaders earn in terms of Young Scot points for completion of the respective levels of the programme. So I told you it would be quick, and hopefully it was, and it's back to you, Jamie, and I'll be in the chat box answering questions. So thanks very much, folks, and I hope you enjoy the session.
Thanks, Graeme. As I said, yeah, if anyone has any questions for Graeme, you can pop them in the chat box and we'll come to them after everyone has spoken, or Graeme can answer them in the chat. So great, thanks very much, Graeme, for being on time. That was wonderful. We're now going to hand over to Amy from Ardrossan Academy. I'm really excited that Amy's here to join us, and I'm not going to say any more. I'm going to let Amy do the speaking. So it's over to you, Amy.
Hi, so I'm Amy Burgoyne from Ardrossan Academy. So I am currently delivering the level 3 to all of the first year cohort. So we have roughly 9 classes of about 20. I'm in charge of 5 of them, and there's another tutor assessor who is in charge of the other 4 classes. So it's lots to do, lots of people to try and manage, but it's really exciting. The kids are very excited about it, they're enthusiastic. So far what we've been sort of doing is picking and choosing different things. So we'll pick some activities out the activity pack. So we've looked at STEM in Scotland, we've looked at STEM in hobbies, we've looked at STEM like careers they could do, but I've also been throwing in some like fun challenges. So it was, we built a chair that had to hold a weight, the biggest weight could win the challenge, or the tallest tower. We're doing lots of different things and brainstorming a wee bit as to what activities we're planning on doing. Obviously with restrictions, all our fantastic ideas before we started the programme has sort of went out the window. So we were thinking about trying to get our first years in primary 7s, going to primary schools to try and build a connection through like partnership. Unfortunately, we can't do that, but some great ideas have came out of it. So far some ideas we've got is pupils are wanting to interview some teachers as to how they got into their STEM subject, what barriers they've overcame, and then share it to the rest of the class and the rest of the first years. We're also in registration, we do like weekly themes in registration. So some of the pupils are wanting to earmark a week to go around different classes and just explain STEM, some of the challenges in STEM, and again just some of the careers. So loads and loads of good opportunities and good skill building opportunities for the kids as well. So they're really enthusiastic and loving it so far. We've had some issues with technology, so some of our young people are going to be using paper logs, and we're just keeping it in a folder. So if they make a PowerPoint presentation, we'll just print off the PowerPoint presentation and keep in the paper copy, whereas others who are more technically advanced and can use laptops and use iPads quite comfortably are doing the online logs. We try an alternative, no, that's not the right word. We try and alternate between having a week of doing activities and then maybe having a week of filling in our logbooks and then doing a fun activity. So just trying to mix it up, and so it's not 3 weeks in a row of doing logbooks, because I think they lose sort of motivation if they're just on the computers and not actually doing something fun. So we're lucky enough it has been timetabled into our class. So both me and the other tutor assessor are science teachers, so all our practical first year classes get 4 periods of science now, but one of those periods of science is dedicated to STEM. So it's great as well for me because I'm seeing such a wide cohort of the first years, so I've got 100 pupils so far, and it's just them getting to know me and then trying to get them excited about STEM has been fun. We are hoping to, once restrictions calm down a wee bit, offer the level 6. We did that last year for the pilot. We had after school clubs where we had a group of pupils doing the level 6 award, which went really well. So we are hoping to try and get that up and running as well. But that's me so far. Hopefully we'll get there soon.
Thanks so much, Amy. That's wonderful. I always love hearing about Ardrossan because there's just so many young STEM leaders, and you should check out their Twitter account as well. It's got loads of nice pictures of what they're getting up to and the kind of things that are happening at Ardrossan Academy. So thanks so much for that, Amy. If anyone has any questions for Amy, just pop them in the chat box now, and I'll pass them on to her, and or she can maybe answer them in the chat, whichever works best. Okay, great. So thanks, Amy. I'm going to quickly and swiftly move on to our next speaker, who is Paul Malcom from Kilcreggan Primary School. So it's over to you, Paul.
Okay, thanks, Jamie. I'm going to talk to you about how we have kind of facilitated young STEM leaders in a digital format coming back after lockdown, and just talk to you about how we got to there. So instead of a presentation, I'm going to just share my website resource with you that the children have been working on and talk you through the kind of steps that we did to get there. So bear with me 1 wee second. You should be able to see that now. This started earlier this year in a bid to raise STEM capital in our school. I wanted to try and use Google Classrooms and Glow and a Glow-based website to have more interaction between our classes and facilitate them being able to work on projects together, provide peer-to-peer mentoring, and with a digital exchange of information, ideas and resources, and also for teachers to share good practice with each other and kind of just have a hub for all the STEM learning, which we're very passionate about in the school. One of the things that initially helped facilitate this was having digital leaders in the school, children who were trained along with me to use Glow and were able to both mentor pupils and also teachers in how to use Glow and solve problems. So if teachers were teaching a class and they couldn't get round all 20 pupils, these children were able to come in either in class or via the classroom itself, talk to pupils and give them advice. Also in pursuit of this, we started having termly science fairs. We had our first science fair back just after Christmas, which was all based in sound and light, and had lots of activities that were really to try and inspire and engage pupils across the school and get them more excited about science and technology. Our first one was science-based, but we hope beyond that to vary them. Unfortunately, at that point, lockdown came along. We were quite well set at that point, obviously, to deliver online learning. And that we were quite fortunate in respect of the fact that we're a small school with only 80 children, and the majority were relatively adept with technology. We created a lot of support materials to help them with that. So when we came back, the natural progression with not being able to have after school clubs and so much face-to-face contact was to take our Young STEM Leader programme. To be fair, all of the Young STEM leaders are in my class. I teach the entirety of second level at our school. So it was very easy for me to take that as a project with the children. And what we did was they came up with ideas for clubs based around STEM, that they could create online content for all the other children in the school so that they could still have their after school clubs. So they have created video content explaining all their activities and have detailed breakdowns of the different steps in every activity, and also they bore in mind obviously the equipment that children would have to use. So this first kind of session of clubs are all things that are quite easily accessible to people at home. Even the fashion design clubs looking at clothing construction, the chemistry clubs looking at experiments you can do with materials at home. So this has been really great for the children. They've developed all sorts of skills: web design, creating content, procedural writing, presenting, developing research skills. They've not just been designing these activities, but they have pretty much taken over management of this website. So we've looked at stereotypes in STEM. They've researched subject matter such as women through history and modern times that have had significant influence in STEM areas. They've also researched careers that they find interesting in STEM and have posted presentations on here that show the kind of steps from being a 10, 11, 12-year-old to being a forensic scientist and how to get there. We just want it to be a resource that really can inspire people and get them interested. So this has also been great as a resource with various absences through the term for us to facilitate home learning. At the minute, it being quite time consuming, we've just got maths on here, but I hope that this can be a place where we can also have peer-to-peer mentoring, where I can ask a pupil to make a video explaining their learning. It works as an assessment tool for me, but it's also them engaging with STEM again and taking leadership of other pupils' learning. A cautionary note about creating this is it's taken a lot of time, and I would really take the time to get to know GLOW. There's a lot of really good resources within GLOW, such as the Google for Education Training Centre app, and I would take the time to also train your children in that. Having the digital leaders has been invaluable to me, because as a single teacher, even with just my one class, I couldn't have dealt with this without the children's help. They really have made this work. There's been a lot of pitfalls with how you post things and who can see what depending on where you upload it from, and there's also GDPR things you need to consider as well. But all in all, I found it a fantastic way, and I'm really enthused about where we can go from this, taking it forward. And I think even without lockdown and the lack of contact, I think this is still the way that we'll drive this forward, obviously with more face-to-face interaction in the future. But it's a great way to learn in collaboration with your pupils as well. I'd have to say an awful lot of the hurdles I've encountered have been solved by the children, not by me. Okay, thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, Paul. It's absolutely fascinating to see what you've created. Wonderful. I've got questions, but I'm going to save them till the Q&A part afterwards. Because now, and if anyone else has any questions, just pop them in the chat box just now, and we'll come to them afterwards. I've now Darren Grant, who's our digital skills manager at SSERC, was going to come present today, but unfortunately he can no longer make it. So he's recorded a lovely 4-minute video for you all, which may well help to deliver activities, events, or interactions remotely. So it's over to Darren now.
My name's Darren, and I'm an Education Manager for Digital Skills and Computer Science based at SSERC. I'm going to show you a few of my favourite tools for screen recording and creating video content for tutorials that could be used in your centre to support Young STEM Leader programme. The first tool I'm going to show you is Screencastify, which is a screen recording tool which is a Google Chrome extension, and that means that you don't need any specialist software to use it. You can install it right into your browser. To launch Screencastify, I'm going to open Google Chrome, open up a new tab, and then type in Screencastify. I'm going to click on the top link, and then in the top right you can see I can add to Chrome. So I'm going to click on there. It'll take me to the Chrome Web Store, where I can click on this blue button to add Screencastify to Chrome. So Screencastify has been installed into my Google Chrome extensions area, and I can't see it at the moment because I've got other extensions pinned. So if I click on the silhouette of the jigsaw piece, scroll down to where I can see Screencastify and click on pin, you can see now that it appears in my shortcuts. Whenever I log in to a Google Chrome browser with my G Suite credentials, I'll always have these extensions pinned to the top, so it's really handy if you're using a number of different computers to log into your browser to save your settings between machines. I've clicked on the icon in the top bar to launch Screencastify and logged in with my Google credentials. Most local authorities have access to G Suite for Education, and alongside your Office 365 and Outlook email address, you'll have a Google email address as well. And if you log in with this email address, it'll automatically save any videos that you record in Screencastify into your Google Drive. So I'm going to click through here to allow the permissions. Okay, and now I'm ready to go. What I want is for my young STEM leaders to become familiar with the activities in the Science Museum Launchball game. Launchball contains a variety of STEM-based activities and problems for pupils to work through, and what I want is for my young STEM leaders to work through these with a younger class, encouraging them to have a structured problem-solving approach to working through the problems. So I'm going to record the information for my young STEM leaders, so I'm going to press on Screencastify at the top here. I want to embed the webcam so that I can speak to my young STEM leaders as I show them on the screen exactly what I want them to do. Your challenge today is to work through the first 6 levels in the Launchball on the Launchball website. So these are the warm-up levels that will allow you So I've recorded my instructions now, and I'm just going to move my camera over, and then when I press stop, it saves my video into my Google Drive automatically for me. If I had a Google Classroom set up just for my young STEM leaders, I could then share it to the classroom for them so that they would then have access to it. If I use Teams or some other way of sharing activities and resources with my pupils, I could export my video as an MP4 that I could then share in whatever way was appropriate with my young STEM leaders. There are many other screen recording tools available online, such as Screencast-O-Matic, Loom, Zoom, QuickTime on the Mac, and there's the iPad screen record feature, Explain Everything, and Apple Clips is also a fantastic tutorial building video application. Please do get in touch if you have any questions or if you've got any feedback or recommendations of other tools that would be useful for people to know about. Thank you. My name's Darren and I'm an Education Manager for Digital Skills and Computer Science based at SSERC.
So thanks to Darren again for providing that video. Really useful skills. I think Screencastify looks really great, and this is something that your young STEM leaders could use to be making videos for other classes, either as a kind of or other groups, either as a kind of cook-along style or as a kind of pre-recorded video. To kind of remotely deliver activities, events, or interactions. So we've now got a few minutes for questions before we move on to our next task. So if anyone has any questions for Paul, Amy, or Graeme, unfortunately not Darren, but we can try and answer on his behalf, then please ask them now. You can either unmute your mic or you can type them in the chat box. But to get us started, I'm just going to ask one question that was posted on the idea boards before the session. So one of them was, can pupils work in small groups to run a shared event? So the kind of short answer to that for me would be yes, but maybe Amy, if you could, is this something that you would do in Ardrossan because you have so many young STEM leaders?
Yeah, so what we're doing is we're trying to run like groups of 4 is probably what we're doing for groups, because if we try to do it individually, it just become unmanageable. So we've been trying to get groups of 4, but the only thing is having to make sure all pupils are involved. So it's not just one person that's doing all the work and 3 other people are getting the benefit off their back. So just keeping an eye on everyone and making sure everyone's ideas are heard. But yeah, working in groups has worked quite well for us. it's building skills as well, I think.
Sure. Great. Thanks very much. Does anyone else have any more questions for any of our panelists? If not at the moment, I've got one for you, Paul. So obviously this website runs through Glow, and not all of our most tutor assessors will have access to Glow, but not all of them. So is there any other kind of platforms that would run in a kind of similar way to this? So you're just muted just now. If you just unmute your mic.
I've certainly not come across anything with as broad a facility as this. I've used various other website builders previously for certain topics, Wix and things like that.
Sure.
But I think the advantages of this being obviously data protection and being able to limit and control your audiences within an educational environment. And also a lot of the additional tools that come with Glow. We've used a lot of things like Jamboard and various things for other activities. And I think just the fact that they can access Word and Excel and PowerPoint and all that within the one place. So I've certainly not come across anything else.
Okay, well, thanks. But I mean, what you've created looks absolutely amazing. So why would you use any other platform, I suppose? Great. Nice. Okay, does anyone have any more questions? Oh, we've got one here. So it says, we're looking for more project ideas for YSL 5 and 6 working in small groups with limited face-to-face contact with younger pupils. So this is a question, thanks Faye for that question. This is a question we get quite a lot about how on earth do you deliver young STEM leader without having face-to-face contact. I'm not sure which of our panelists thinks they'd be able to answer that well. Obviously what Paul has suggested is a really great and valuable tool to do that, but I don't know if Graeme, if you have any other ideas about how YSL could be delivered remotely in this way.
Yeah, there's been some great ones along the last couple of months where people, of course, science clubs are not allowed yet, etc. What a lot of people are doing is from their own homes, and they're still able to work in groups as well using, collaborating on Google Docs, etc. Is young STEM leaders, one of the ones that jumps out at me as young STEM leaders at that level, 5 and 6, are actually running study clubs and study guides and online homework support for younger people in their high school. So that's one example. Jamie used a term that's quite popular at SSERC, cook-alongs. So whilst science clubs aren't available per se, you can still have your young STEM leaders doing, let's say, science experiments and videoing them and then posting them online later on. And if they use the right sort of stuff, then the young STEM leaders at home can do a cook-along, whether it's a bit of kitchen chemistry or we've even seen origami. So it can be done if the young STEM leaders can, produce some video content, post it later on, and once the recipients of what the young STEM leaders do get home, they can do the cook-along. So there's plenty of options there.
There's loads of amazing ways that your young people could suggest and ideas of their own to kind of bring a bit of unique digital content to it, whether that's kind of ways of gathering feedback or ways of introducing certain topics to different classes, whether that's using social media or the school's or centre's website or anything like that. I'd encourage you to be ambitious with your young STEM leaders, because they often come out with some really great ideas. I mean, an example off the top of my head is we have a school in Glasgow, and they've recently kind of moved to being an Apple school, and they're all using iPads, and the young STEM leaders have set up an iPad surgery session where they are responsible for training the staff how to use iPads as part of their young STEM leader awards. So be ambitious and take inspiration from your young people as well for what they want to do. So maybe I've got time for one more question before we move on. So I've got Colin's asked a question. So it's just starting out. Do you have any tips or basic go-tos to help kickstart the Young STEM Leader Award? So I'm going to ask Amy. Amy, do you have any tips for getting started with Young STEM Leader effectively in your school?
So the first thing I did was trying to get them interested in STEM. So we did a STEM challenge, and they loved it. So it was the first thing we did was the paper challenge. They got 5 bits of paper and had to build the tallest, strongest tower. It just kind of piqued their interest into STEM. The other tip I would say is utilise the activity packs and the level packs as well. They've been like a Bible to me. They're so useful. There's so much good information and so many helpful tips and activities that you could pick up on and just pick and choose what you want to do. But the activity packs have been so useful.
Great. Thanks, Amy. And Paul, lastly, do you have any tips for delivering Young STEM Leader?
Yeah, I would agree with Amy as well. I think really broadening the perspectives and understanding what STEM is. And I think exploring the stereotypes and breaking stereotypes, but also showing quite how broad it is. You know, we do a lot of STEM in school with computers and making things and science and whatnot, but I think actually when we started to explore STEM, that's when a lot of the great ideas started to happen with the club ideas. For example, we've got kids who love comics who would never have thought that that had anything to do with STEM until we started talking about it, and they realised that most computer graphics are now done in computer and coloured within Photoshop and using technology. So I think really exploring in depth what opportunities and careers are actually out there in STEM to inspire and invigorate more ideas in the kids.
Fantastic. Thank you so much to all of our panelists and those who've asked questions. Really great discussion and some nice ideas about how you can kickstart or continue the delivery of Young STEM Leader in your centre. And on that vein, we're now Hi folks, so welcome back. Thanks so much for doing that, and I hope it was useful. And I'm really sorry I had to cut it short. I think there's some good discussions going on there because we've got some amazing ideas on our idea boards just now. If there's anything you didn't manage to get on there that you think would be really useful to share, I will keep this open till tomorrow, so you can add any other ideas you have. If you wake up at 3 AM and you're like, I've got this brilliant idea that I just need to share with all the other tutor assessors, then you can go on and you can do that. And then what I'll do is I'll collate some of this and send it out to the other tutor assessors who didn't make it today, which will hopefully be a starting point for some nice conversations and ideas for those who might not have started the programme already. A few of my favourites that I've been watching these come in as you were in the session, where I love the kind of social media ideas, so kind of TikTok cook-along style videos for younger children. I think it's a really fantastic idea, a nice way to engage young people with social media that they're already using. Really nice ideas about using Google Classrooms and other digital technologies to connect pupils within a cluster between primary and secondary or between cluster primary schools. It's really lovely, and that's something that the Young STEM Leader can support really well, that kind of cluster-based approach. And it's also a nice way to develop relationships when you can't meet physically as well between different schools in a cluster. Loads of fantastic ideas there, and thanks again for contributing so much to it and for taking the time to participate in today's session. So just before we finish, I've got some another poll to share with you. Sorry, it's not this one, it's another one. A feedback poll, because I want to find out how you thought today's event went. This is the first ever Tutor Assessor Connections event that we've run, and we're planning to run more of them in the future. So I'd really love to get your feedback on what was good and what wasn't. And questions 5 and 6 focus on future topics for you and future topics for events for your young STEM leaders as well. So please take the time to answer that. I've got a couple more bits of information to give you before you head off.
Jamie, can I just jump in whilst people are doing their poll?
Sure.
That's a brilliant idea, and it's one that struck me there with the online primary secondary thing. Quite a lot of our high schools are actually going to do digital transition, and they're going to put young STEM leaders in charge of it basically, and whether it's videos to find your way around the school, what to expect in different classes, meet the teachers. So the digital transition, that's another one that's a really good one in this current situation. So yeah, great idea.
Cool. So thanks for that, Graeme. Yeah, I can only echo what you said. Very common way to run young STEM leader. It's really good ideas there. And if anyone else has any kind of final comments or thoughts that they'd like to share with the group, please do so now, or even any questions for any of our speakers that didn't get asked earlier. There were some questions on the idea boards before we started about running during COVID with class bubbles, and hopefully you've got some ideas about that from this session. And I think that's all of the questions we had. Oh, there was one question about STEM ambassadors, working with STEM ambassadors, and conveniently, that is our next Tutor Assessor Connections event at the end of October. So working with STEM ambassadors is usually facilitated through the 3 STEM ambassador hubs in Scotland. There's a hub in the north, a hub in the east, and a hub in the south of the west of Scotland. Sorry. The hubs are partners to the Young STEM Leader Programme, and we've worked quite closely with them recently to align the awards and to align the YSL awards with becoming a STEM ambassador. So there's now a nice transition between being a young STEM leader and being a STEM ambassador. And there's loads of different ways that STEM ambassadors can support the delivery of the award, whether that's them being a tutor assessor or using STEM ambassadors to support the award. So we've already got some tutor assessors signed up to support the next Tutor Assessor Connections event. If you have worked with STEM ambassadors before and could contribute to this, please send me an email and we'll get you on at the next event. And please book a space on to the next session, because it's been so nice to hear from tutor assessors and hear what you're up to and generate some more ideas for the future. So it's been really positive for me, certainly, and I hope you have enjoyed the event too. So that's all from us today. We'll be sticking around if you have any more questions or feedback for a wee while, but thanks again for attending today, and hopefully I'll see you on the 26th of October, 4 till 5 for the next session, and you can book it at youngstemleader.scot, and please apply to be an RTAF. So thanks very much from me, and have a good evening.